Hi, I'm Dave DeWitt, and today I'd like to talk a little bit about time, what it is, why it's important. My motivation for this study is simply that I was intrigued by some papers I read on the subject and decided to do some research on my own, focused on what I found in the Bible. But what I found was quite amazing. I discovered that this is a crucial Bible study. The Bible has a lot to say about time. The Bible's concept of time is dramatically opposed to the highly influential view promoted by the liberal, progressive, secular world today. Crucial biblical doctrines such as prayer of the gospel, sufficiency of the death of Christ, and the character of God are linked to our view of time. There are three commonly held Christian views about time which are wrong. One is that there's no time in heaven. Another is that God created time in Genesis 1. And the third is that God is separated from time. I'd like to say that this material is not difficult, but it is not something most people think about. So it may seem difficult only because we don't usually talk about time. I also think you'll find it more interesting than you expect. I did. The purpose of this study is to determine the doctrine of time by making observations from the Bible and the nature of the universe. Christian theologians who talk about time usually jump directly to the involvement of God in time without looking at the nature of time itself, and I suspect that's why they make a lot of mistakes. So here are two things I want to talk about in this podcast. First, I'll discuss the nature of time, how to define and describe time. And second, I'll look at the duration of time. Did time have a beginning or an end? Since we're going to talk about the nature of time, there's some questions to consider. What is time? How do we know about time since we cannot detect it with any of our five senses? Is time a fourth dimension of the universe? Does time exist in the past and future or just the present? Does all time exist at the same time? Can we escape from time? And is there time in heaven? First, the definition of time. The best definition I found was in Wikipedia. They say time is the continued sequence of events that occur in an apparently irreversible succession from the past through the present into the future. Now, my brief definition from all that is that time is a progression of existence. Time requires something to exist, and that something must be progressing, that is, in motion. A corollary to this is time exists and is always five different things. So there's five things we should know that are always true about time. It is sequential. That is, things happen in time always impact other things that happen in time. It's continual. Time goes on inevitably. It cannot be stopped. It's measurable. Moments of time can be measured, what we call minutes and hours and days and years. Time is irreversible. What happens in time cannot be altered or undone. And time is unavoidable. There's no one can escape the progression of time. Now I want to talk to you about an A theory and a B theory of time. Now, the two theories, usually labeled A and B, are not my designation. The term A theory or B theory were first coined by Richard Gale in 1966. The A theory, or dynamic view of time, says time is moving from past to present to future. Now, this is probably what you and I believe. It says the past existed, but no longer exists. Only the present exists, and the future does not yet exist. In the A theory, if something happened yesterday, and then something else happened today. Yesterday's events are in the past, and today's immediate events are in the present. Whatever happens tomorrow is in the future, which has not yet happened. Yesterday's events do not just happen before today's events, but in past time from today's events. When an event happens in sequence with some other event, for example, take the statement, I wrecked my car, so I bought a new car. It means the first event is in the past with respect to the second event. Now, the second event may also be in the past, but it's future from the perspective of the first event. The consequence of past events exists, but the past events themselves no longer exist. Now, the B theory is a static or not moving view of time. It says that time is a fourth dimension of the cosmos where no past, present, or future distinctions, but all of the time exists simultaneously. Events are like the arrangement of the letters in the alphabet. Some events happen before other events, but a prior event is not in the past. It's just merely before some other event and after some other event. If you have letters in the alphabet which occur in a certain order, that doesn't mean one occurs before the other. This is the view preferred by modern physics, often embraced by both atheists and pantheists, and the basis of the Hollywood movies about time, especially if you have a DeLorean with a flux capacitor. The capacity to move back and forth in time assumes the B theory. Some time travel movies picture the B theory like a piece of paper or a ribbon which contains all time. All parts of the ribbon exist simultaneously. And if the part you are in, what you're currently experiencing, touches some other part of the ribbon, or there's a wormhole transporting you from some other part of the ribbon, then you can move in time, which actually exists at the same time as your time. I suspect the vast majority of the people in the Western world today believe the B theory. It's like evolution. They invent a theory, then they use their theory to prove their next theory. I suggest that the real reason the B theory is popular is because it's contrary to the Bible. Ted Sider offers this example. If you're living in the year 2016, A theory says the year 1967 is 49 years in the past. B theory says the year 1967 is 49 years before the year 2016. The biblical perspective. Let's take a look at a biblical perspective about time. No serious understanding of the Bible, or observational reality for that matter, could conclude the B theory of time. There's simply no observation of it anywhere. We can put biblical events on a timeline, but it's a dynamic, developing line, not a static, pre-existing line. There's a historical past and a predicted future, which can be applied to the present. This is possible because time in the Bible is linear. The Bible does not see time as beginning or ending, but it does see our cosmos as beginning and ending. Biblically, time is not presented as circular or cyclical, as in the pantheistic religions. Biblically understood, time moves in a direction from a real past through a real present into a real future. In the Bible, many things happen simultaneously. For example, at the same time Moses was on Mount Sinai, the Israelites were building a golden calf. But past things are not simultaneously with present things or future things. Moses on Mount Sinai is not simultaneous with Joshua's conquest of the land of Canaan. But there was a real past, there's a real present, and there's a real future. But only the present exists. So the B theory, the most popular theory in progressive secular society today, must be rejected. Here's 7 observations about the nature of time. Number 1, time always moves in a progression from past to present to future. When referring to time, it is inappropriate to say some things are merely before, during, or after other things, because those things do not necessitate a progression. Notice, since time by definition always has a past, present, and future, it can never have a beginning or an end, because then there would be a present time which does not have a past and one which does not have a future. Second, from any point in time, every other point in time is either past, present, or future. It can only be one of those. Ronald Reagan was inaugurated as President of the United States on January 20, 1981. Every point in time is either past, present, or future from that point. But it cannot be any two of them or all of them. 3, any point in time itself has all 3 aspects of time at the same time. Ronald Reagan's inauguration is in the past time from the inauguration of Bill Clinton. It's at the present time as those attending the inauguration, and it's in the future time of the inauguration of Abraham Lincoln. 4, only the present exists. This is the most important thing to understand about time. The consequences of the past impact the present and the future, but the past itself no longer exists and the future does not yet exist. Take the old example of the depressed guy who jumps off a 30-story building. Right after he jumps, he realizes this is a bad idea and he prays, "Dear God, forgive me for jumping off this building." God says, "You're forgiven." As the guy falls past the 20th floor, he prays, I want to be forgiven right now." God says, "You're forgiven right now." But as the guy falls past the 10th floor, the act of jumping is in the past. It no longer exists. But the consequence of the past impacts the present, which exists, and the future, which will exist, even though the future does not yet exist. Nonetheless, all decisions are made in the present because only the present exists. Apostolic exhortations like the Apostle Paul's statement, "making the most of the time because the days are evil," can only refer to the present time. Present time is temporary, not permanent. Since there's only present time, how long is the present? At any point in time, present time is a location, not a duration. But the present is not only a location, it's also a location in motion, which continually is changing. For example, 68% of the human body is made up of cells. Scientific American tells us about 330 billion cells are replaced daily, equivalent of about 1% of all your cells. In 80 to 100 days, 30 trillion will have been replaced, the equivalent of a new you. Our bodies are not the only thing changing continually. All of this universe appears to be continually changing, deteriorating, in fact, according to the second law of thermodynamics. For example, more than 99% of all organisms that have ever lived on Earth are extinct. Some say we're like a flowing river, ever changing. Others say we're like a flip chart of instantaneous pictures moved through a simultaneous to simulate motion. However, you see, the 3 things are true. Only the present exists. Present time is in motion, so every instance of time is temporary. And third, the nature of time, of present time, is that it creates the past. History is a record of what has been created by present time. The sixth aspect of time is that time in heaven measures what does not deteriorate. Two basic observations. First, there's time in heaven. There are evangelical songs that say, in heaven time will be no more. Well, that's just not true. I'll read you a few verses. Revelation 4:8. And the four living creatures, day and night, they do not cease to say, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was, and who is to come. Revelation 8:1. When the Lamb broke the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about a half an hour. Revelation 9:15. There were the four angels who had been prepared for the hour and day and month and year were released so that they would kill a third of mankind. Second, the difference between time in our cosmos and time in heaven is that our time is measuring deterioration. Time in heaven and hell is not as far as we can observe biblically in a context of deteriorating surroundings. The difference for time in the heavenlies is not that it goes away or changes, but that it measures surroundings that do not deteriorate. Seventh thing about time is the human spirit experiences time but does not change with time. Our spiritual nature, which will be somewhere forever, may become better or worse. It does not deteriorate as an entity like our current bodies do. The human spirit will leave this body, exist in a temporary body, move to an eternal body, and eventually reside in the New Jerusalem or the lake of fire, without the end of time or deterioration of the resurrected body. So here's my summary and conclusions. Although the consequence of past time exists, past time itself no longer exists. Future time does not yet exist, and only present time exists. History, even biblical history, is a record of what happened in what was then present time. We learned that the time is sequential. Things that happen in time always impact other things that happen in time. It's continual. Time goes on inevitably. It's measurable. We can measure it in things like minutes and hours and days and years. It's irreversible. What happened in time cannot be altered or undone. And it's unavoidable. No one can escape the progression of time. But only present time exists. There's no such thing as time travel because time is active, not static. The nature of time never changes. It's the same on earth, in heaven, in hell, and as far as we can tell, everywhere. Time is not different in heaven. It's just that here, time is measuring a deteriorating universe. Thank you for listening. A longer paper on the subject with footnotes for the quotes is available on our website, relationalconcepts.org.